Welcome to Expert Insights from DCN Diagnostics. I'm Mitzi Rettinger. Today's episode is a CEO-level conversation about how IVD programs get executed, where they stall, and what changes when a services organization is built to reduce handoffs across development, clinical, regulatory, and manufacturing. My guest is Charlie Mamrak, CEO of DCN Diagnostics. Charlie joined DCN in 2020 after leading multiple diagnostics and life science tools companies, including SeraCare Life Sciences. Charlie's not here to walk through assay science or engineering details, even though he is a scientist by training. He's here to talk strategy, why DCN built its current business model, why biospecimens is a part of that direction, and what he believes the industry needs next. Charlie, thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Mitzi.
So before we start, I want to keep us in the business lane today. How does DCN make decisions, what you're seeing across the field, and how DCN's business model supports IVD developers and the broader industry? So Charlie, for someone who knows DCN by reputation, but hasn't worked with us directly, how does DCN support IVD developers?
The way I like to think about it, Mitzi, is through cross-functional expertise. We provide a full range of services across what we term the IVD value chain. So when someone comes to us with an initial idea for an assay, right on through development, regulatory, clinical studies, manufacturer transfer, and manufacturing. So really full service offering across all those variety of services.
To expand on that just a little bit, what do you want the market to understand about DCN today, beyond lateral flow?
As a lot of folks know, DCN started out as a lateral flow assay development laboratory. So if you go back 5 years ago, that was the bulk of services that DCN provided to our clients. And that's still a very important part of what we do. But over the last 5 years, we've expanded along all the different services that I mentioned earlier. And one of the ways I think about it is the assay development, particularly for lateral flow, is the very front end of that value chain. It is also one of the most difficult assays to develop. So we've kind of built on that foundation of deep technical expertise in IVD and lateral flow specifically with these cross-functional linkages. Think about it as the difference between a horizontal and vertical integration. So instead of going deep and just doing just lateral flow, where we started, and we still do that, we're across the horizontal of this value chain, providing all these different services.
DCN has deliberately built an integrated services model. What problem are you solving by bringing rapid testing CDMO capabilities and IVD clinical research services into one platform?
I think about the old engineering paradigm of cost, quality, and speed, pick two, right? Our model challenges those assumptions or those kind of limitations, bringing together this cross-functional talent to collaborate on each step in the value chain. I think that the approach that we have has been proven with our clients to enable them to get A, a better product, and B, a faster product, and C, at over lower all cost than they could do either internally with different departments or with different outsourced partners or some combination of those. Having it all in one place really breaks down barriers, reduces friction, and helps both on speed, cost, and quality.
Sounds like a great model. So DCN just launched a biospecimen services business unit. From the CEO seat, why was this worth building, and what does it change for an IVD developer?
Everyone who's been involved with developing IVD assays knows biospecimens are one of the primary strategic inputs to building and commercializing an assay. It touches all phases of that value chain we've been talking about. They're needed for R&D in the front end, for early stage development, analytical validation, into clinical studies, of course, and in a lot of cases as input for control materials in the final kit manufacturing. So if you think about it that way, it fits perfectly within all of our services. And we see it as a hurdle and a real constraint to the quality, speed, and cost I mentioned earlier in getting these assays completed. So again, bringing it into this cross-functional environment where biospecimens team interacts with on our projects and programs with assay development, clinical, regulatory, and right on through manufacturing really helps to speed up the process. Higher quality, lower cost.
You've described DCN's current model as a reflection of the collaboration first ethos, which is, as you're describing, on this growth trajectory. How do you think about the next phase of expansion for DCN?
We talked about earlier the matrix of along the service as well as all the different modalities, immunoassay, molecular, microbiology, and so forth, and filling out that matrix, or what I sometimes call the checkerboard. So really the next phase is continuing to fill out all of those boxes in that checkerboard to enable what we're talking about here, focusing on, filling out the checkerboard, being able to provide all the services for all of those modalities. It's really a never-ending effort since the market will continue to evolve with new technologies and new requirements. Our job is to evolve with the market, or ideally to stay one step ahead of it.
Looking at all these options, when you select that next strategic direction, how do you decide whether to build it, buy it, or collaborate to fill that gap?
And really the things that we look at when we're deciding on the build or buy or combo of those, as you've outlined, is the time to market between building or buying. An important one in the market today is the availability of assets to be acquired, the scarcity of some of those assets, the learning curve that it would take us to go from where we are now organically, where we want to be, the amount of customization we might want versus buying something that is already entrenched in the market versus maybe we want to customize more, and the integration complexity. Again, sometimes buying a business, the integration that goes along with that, and the time and the investment is much or more than what we might do organically. So we kind of balance all of those things. And when you look at what we've accomplished so far, it's been a real balance of both acquisition and organic, building it internally, and we'll continue to assess those every time we have an opportunity.
Thank you, Charlie. That's an insightful perspective. I appreciate it. So let's zoom out to the industry. What do you think IVD buyers and decision makers are rewarding right now? And what do you think they're less patient with?
As we all know, the IVD market is going through a lot over the last 5-6 years. It's still recovering from the pandemic whipsaw, as I call it, going kind of back and forth. It was a time of rapid change, and there's a fair amount of chaos kind of followed that with a lot of market ambiguity. So when I think about that, and we talk to the executives in the market, the things that we're seeing is what we're rewarding right now is folks that can help them with clarity, readiness, and predictability. And that makes sense given the history of the last 5-6 years. They see the need for a clear path through some of the regulatory changes we're all seeing, scientific and technical challenges, and then market uncertainties. And we can help with many of those challenges. They need partners to have the capability, the commitment, the capacity right now. That's the readiness. And then lastly, kind of see around corners. This entire market evolution over the last 5-6 years has been all about seeing internally, with some of which were just impossible to see around. We're getting a clearer picture. And when you think about a company like DCN that's been involved with so many programs across different segments, different markets, different technologies, we've seen many more corners than a lot of folks in the industry. So I think we have that ability to see around and what to expect in the next steps in the market evolution, and identifying those risks and being able to help our clients mitigate and minimize those risks.
I'm going to switch gears on you a little. DCN runs a basic lateral flow training course, and you're talking about seeing around corners and being able to help the industry. I've seen a lot of feedback on the training course, and I think one of the interesting ones really aligns with some of the things you're saying, which is wow, I mean, it's a lateral flow. It's so easy use. I never realized how complex it was to develop. And I think that does help people understand when they're having those routine meetings with the technical team to know why things are being done or why things are taking a certain amount of time. I also noticed there's a lot of different types of people. You would expect the LFA naive, maybe some startups to want to participate because they're looking to develop one, but also a lot of non-scientists or engineers or marketing, academia, people who really want to better understand what a lateral flow is. And I do see that the DCN team is so engaged in giving back and making sure that people understand what they do and how to do it. So, it really sounds like a well-rounded course that can benefit a lot of people. I think it's great that DCN invests their time in that. So for our listeners, the next basic lateral flow training runs February 24th to 26th, 2026, and you can register on dcndx.com. You're known internally for asking, how could we do more? What does that question mean in practice when you're allocating resources and setting priorities at DCN?
There are always two dimensions when I say, how can we do more? One is continuing to provide the highest level of service for every single project, every single program that we provide our clients. That's so ingrained in our culture, as you know, although it's always good to remind folks of that. We're always striving to do better. That's not the main message for me. When I say, how do we do more? It's how can we continue to fill out that checkerboard? How can we continue to provide more and more relevant services to our clients to fill out, all of the different needs they have from initial early stage of an asset development right through commercialization. We talked about this before, whether it's through adding a incremental service onto our existing capability, building out an entirely new capability with organically, or going out and doing some acquisitions. All of these things are something we're constantly thinking about. That's how we're going to continue to grow the company. That's how we're going to continue to provide value and a real competitive differentiation. What I've seen in the market, when we look at it closer, there's no one else in the market that provides the range of services that we do and the depth of the services that we do for in each of those areas.
Yeah, I think that real focus on IVD across all of those services is absolutely a differentiator. I agree with you. So what tells you personally that a new capability is going to matter to our customers?
It's the classic listening to customers. What are they saying? What are they experiencing? What are their pain points and problems, repeat problems, combined with a deep knowledge of the full development process and understanding of all those changing dynamics. Again, we've been doing this for 20 years. We've operated on hundreds of different projects, many hundreds of different projects. So we've learned things over that period of time about the market, about the problems, so we can recognize opportunities when we speak to customers, sometimes even before they might realize, how their problems could translate into a solution. So providing that full suite of expertise the customers need today and staying one step ahead, as I said, ideally, we're providing those services or starting to build those services before they even need them. Always balancing timing and ROI, how much it's going to cost to develop the service. You don't want to have a service that's too far ahead of schedule, but timing is really important and making sure we balance our ROI.
So, you talked about listening to customers and really understanding their position. And you always hear, especially in an executive suite, our customers are also our employees. So how do you keep the company working together so smoothly as you expand?
It's all about culture in the company and hiring the right people, retaining the right people. And we're, as you know, very, very focused on all of those sorts of things. One thing we don't advertise externally at all, but for the purposes of this discussion, I think it's worth talking about, is our core values. And when I say we don't advertise externally, it's because these core values really are intrinsic to who we are. It's not something we advertise. I think the result of which gives us an advantage, and clients recognize that and appreciate it. But the core values are collaborative relationships, agile adaptability, and service excellence.
Well, I totally agree that those core values are not only intrinsic to DCN, but certainly make an impact. So thank you for sharing those thoughts.
So tag on to that, Mitzi, I want to also share beyond our core values that we talked about briefly earlier, we also have identified our core purpose. It's what DCN stands for today and for many, many years in the future. And this is something we developed internally some 4 or 5 years ago. And again, we don't advertise this externally. It's for our own internal motivation and kind of ensure that we kind of follow this purpose. And that is that we impact global health by transforming ideas into accessible solutions. It's all about developing these assays, as we talked about, in a way that's very accessible to the market. And that's whether that's developed markets, lower resource areas, at home, point of care, or central lab, developing these assays to transform global healthcare with these accessible solutions.
Well said. And as always, Charlie, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, Mitzi. It's always a pleasure.
To learn more about DCN diagnostic services across rapid testing CDMO work, IVD CRO services, and biospecimens, visit dcndx.com. If you're looking for structured lateral flow training for yourself or your team, the next basic lateral flow training course runs February 24th to 26th, 2026. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Subscribe for more expert insights, and we'll see you next time.